Auckland was supposed to get better as it grew. More people, more development, more opportunity. That was the promise. But for a lot of people, it feels like the opposite is happening. More pressure, higher costs, less freedom. And to unpack that, we're joined by Maurice Williamson, former Cabinet Minister, now sitting inside Auckland Council, dealing with these issues in real time. So he's not guessing. He's seeing the trade-offs up close, which leads to the real question. Has Auckland growth actually improved life or quietly made it worse?
I think it's in the eye of the beholder. I think it's made things worse because I think we've built some pretty eyesore-looking suburbs and stuff. If you go down into parts of Flatbush where there is no car parks on any of the new buildings, there is no car parking because the streets are so narrow. They weren't built to put. And so you got people parked up on front lawns and berms and all sorts of, and there's also neighbours getting angry with other neighbours for parking in front of their property. So I think growth just for the sake of growth hasn't been good for us.
What about the infrastructure? Does that keep
we haven't even come close to that. And that's one of the things that makes me laugh about the big debate about this housing intensification, this Plan Change 120. Oh, we're going to put another 2 million dwellings in the next 30 years. We have got areas of Auckland that are tankering poo every day because they haven't got any sewage connection or pipes that can do it, or plans to even drop those pipes in and waste fresh water as well.
In Auckland.
In Auckland.
Yeah.
In Auckland. And so if you've got that already, Watercare are very clear that their big infrastructure deficit has got a long way to go to try and get it back. If you are at the same time just throwing huge new subdevelopments like Drury, another one out at Ardmore, with thousands of new houses, and you haven't even got the roading infrastructure. Take Drury. It used to be that you could drive down that part of the southern motorway when you're coming back to Auckland without a problem, and you only struck it when you got up to Papakura and a bit further on. Now, it's now happening from right back at Drury in the morning because we've got no extra lanes to the motorway, but a huge, huge block of new population.
It goes 2 lanes to 4. And
that huge population is trying to get onto the old 2 lanes that were there. So I prefer we took a leaf out of other countries' books that have done it well. Go in and find a site, lay out all your infrastructure, pipes, water, sewerage, your roading, do your connections onto the major transport corridors like your motorways or a train corridor so it's got train stations and buses. And then say to the developers, there, the site's done, fill your boots, go build what you want.
Instead of the other way around.
But the other way around, we're doing it in a shocking way, and there are prime examples. There's a guy who works at council who, I'll leave his name off, but he came to me the other day, he said, I've just moved into a flat down in Flatbush, and he said, the street I am in, there is just nowhere to put your car. And he has to park it round the corner or on another street because people are up on the sidewalks and the berms and so on, and they park, and you can't park it. There's not enough room to queue 2 car. And that is what we call progress and what we call development. Now, what was stupid about Plan Change 120, unfortunately, the government have backed down on it. I said on one of your programs they would. They couldn't stay with it. I don't know what they were smoking at the time, but they were never going to be able to stay at 2 million. What they're now saying is we'll drop to 1.6 million dwellings. There is an average of 3 people per dwelling. So now you're talking of sort of, 3, 4, 5 million people more in Auckland? I'm sorry, but we don't have 5 million in the whole country, and you're not going to see that level of growth of population. So we've got I don't understand what was wrong with the 2016 unitary plan. It allowed for 30,000 new properties every year for 30 years. So that's 900,000 over the 30 years. Now let's go back and have a look at some of those years, 2017, 2018, 2019, right up to 2024 I've got. Did we ever use any of those 30,000 properties? Yes, sometimes we got to 14,000. One year we actually got to 20,000 of them. Now remember, any surplus that we didn't get to, when we did 14, there's 16 left, that flows over to the next year still available.
Rolls through, yeah.
It's cumulative. So now we've still got this amazing backlog of stuff out of the unitary plan available for, and we keep saying, oh, it's not enough.
So this projected growth, is this just because government or council needs that extra growth to
No, it's the
justify
government.
spending?
No, I'll tell you where it came from. It came from the Labor government. Megan Woods had said house prices rose so quickly during that 2020 period, when the big and that was because there was the demand was outstripping supply. Well, that's not true. If you go back and look at what the major driver was, there are two of them. One, money was free.
Well, yeah, it came
You
down
paid
to
a quarter of a
2%.
percent. No, a quarter. OCR came to a quarter of a percent.
Yeah.
Okay, which means money's free. Okay, and secondly, let's pump such a swill of money into this economy, litres more and litres more. So money was slushing around. So, why wouldn't I buy a property? You know, it's 500,000 more than we were planning. Oh, it doesn't matter.
So we totally disrupted the whole free market approach.
We broke
Yeah.
the free market model. We drove prices through the ceiling because we gave them free money. It's the old Adrian Orr who's still not been held to account. I want him back before a tribunal and answering bloody questions about how he feels he could do that to the country.
He's probably get him and Grant. They're probably holiday.
And then we made such liquidity available to try to stimulate everything. It didn't really work. So that's what, and if you read any papers from any people who really know their stuff, those are the two things they attributed the massive house price explosion, not to do with supply and demand.
Well, immigration might slow down a bit now, given the global situation. So if we pause Auckland's growth, is it going to improve or deteriorate?
There's some things we can do in Auckland still. I don't think you should spend $6 billion on building a train set and then not give it some customers. So around those CBD stations, for the CRL, going out onto the Western Line, the Eastern Line and so on, but out as far as Mangawhau or Mount Eden, I think you should be putting some higher intensification apartment dwellings. People can then live, work and play on the rail line without having to have a car or use roading.
That's all planned, right? That's happening.
Well, we've not got it done yet, but that's where we really do need some high-rise intensification. But you do not need to, as they were trying to, come into the leafy suburbs. Oh, I forgot to tell you about the Megan Woods. So she saw this house price rise, so she said, right, they decided on a thing called MDRS, Medium Density Residential Standards. They said to Auckland, if you built 3 dwellings of 3 stories on every parcel of land in Auckland, what does that come to? Yeah. And it comes to 2.07 dwellings, millions. 2.07 million dwellings. So they said, right, that's what we want. That's what MDRS will deliver, which is insanity because multiply that by your 3 people per dwelling and you're talking 6-point-something million extra people. Extra, not people, but extra.
The only thing worse than girl math is labour math.
Well, they got it so bad. And then the only thing that was really worse, so that people don't think I'm being political here, is the stupid National Party decided that would be the one thing they picked to be bipartisan on.
Yeah.
And went into this bipartisan agreement on what was a glaring...
Well, that's because too many of those people at the top of National are pretty much Labour.
Well, that's the problem with them as well. So then they got into government and they could start it. They needed to say MDRS is gone. Plan Change 78, which was to enable a lot of what MDRS had, it's gone. We're going to bring a new... Actually, I don't know why they didn't just go back to the unitary plan, which would have deluged the 900,000 over that time, and then said, but we want unitary plan plus a little bit more than that down those rail corridors and down those eastern busway corridor when it's built and so on. You can add maybe another 100,000 to the 900, maybe a million, maybe 1.1.
You've been everywhere, Morris. What is going to increase quality of life for the most people in Auckland?
Standard of living is mainly based on your real income, but also if you live in a little tiny box and have no land and can't park your car. I compare quality of life rather than standard of living. I've been a guest in people's houses in Japan, chief executive of a big airline, living on a piece of land in a box that you would think was just impossible to New Zealand to even live like that.
But they wouldn't have a car. They're living in the city, right? Or at a train line?
Yeah, whatever. So what we've got to do is say, do we appreciate the quality of life we've got? And a lot of people, certainly in the Howick ward that I represent, they love the fact they've got some open space. They can park their cars in a garage on their building. Bishop won't even move on the why don't we have minimum number of car parks per dwelling. That's gone. And so now we're building dwellings out here. Some of them are 4-bedroom. Now, I will wager to you there'll be more than one person live in a 4-bedroom apartment, okay? That's what I'm going to wager. Otherwise, why would you have a 4-bedroom? And they don't have a car park. And the best one I'll show you is up on the corner of Pakuranga Highway and Glenmore, where there's no car parking. It's just being built. And yet there are yellow dotted lines all the way down the Pakuranga Highway and all the way down Glenmore. So there's no way to park out the front.
It's like that in West Auckland.
How could come and visit you? How can a doctor stop out the
One
front?
development on its own is fine, but you get all these developments together on yellow lines in narrow streets, and it does fuck up a whole
Correct.
community.
Absolutely correct. And so sensible planning and sensible numbers. And I think that if the 30,000 times 30 years was proving after a couple of years, we're hitting the 30.
So the government can pull numbers out their ass, but we're not going to build them anyway. So it
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
and that was exactly what was happening. I said the developers, but there's still heaps of land available for it. Yeah, I don't think that's what's holding us back.
Well, before you finish at Auckland Council, please remind them 7.9% increase in rates is not well liked.
No, I wanted two or three things to say on the 7.9. The 7.9% rate increase is an across-the-board number. People who live in the Howick ward will be paying a lot more than 7.9 because it's going to average out at 7.9. And so there'll be people paying in parts of Auckland where their properties are not so valuable or not so, or a whole lot of other criteria and conditions. So there'll be people here getting a rates bill of 9% increase and so on. But I also want to tell you something about the 7.9. It comes to 325 million. And later this year, the CRL opens, and the cost of us operating that, our OPEX cost for just running the CRL, is 325 million. It's the exact same number.
Yeah.
No, I promise you I can show you the documents. They are both the same number. In other words, had we not had the CRL coming online,
Don't rates increase.
you could have had a zero rates increase across the board, zero.
Yeah.
You could have done zero. So the rate increase will be for all of those paying for the train set, which might be fine if you lived in Mount Eden and could jump on the train and shoot to town and do shopping and come back.
Well,
but there are huge parts of this city that don't even know what a train set looks like, have no railway lines. We have none out in the east. They have none on the North Shore. And they're going to be saying, hang on, I'm paying another walloping big rate increase and I'm not seeing the benefits of it.
Well, let's pray it works. Thanks for your time.
Pleasure.
Growth sounds good in theory, but in reality, it only matters if people's lives improve. If they don't, then something in the model is broken.